Okay, I'm going to call this special meeting of council to order. First, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is taking place in a traditional and ceded territory of the Sinanawas First Nation. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I'll just make that motion that the March 18th, 2026 special council meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Second by Councillor Lerner. Any discussion? Okay, hearing nothing, I will move to call in the question. All those in favor and opposed, that is carried unanimously. All right, so that takes us into, I guess, mayor and council verbal updates. We can start with you, Councillor Lerner.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Councillor Savage,
No, thank you.
Councillor Jones. Nothing, okay, and for myself, nothing. And I don't see, oh, Councillor Mundell's there. Do you have anything, Councillor Mundell, for updates? No? Okay. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up if you can. Okay. And we can do a sound check with you, like if you want to unmute. Yeah, it's not really coming through. Still not really.
Can you?
Oh. Came through for like split second.
So Councillor Mundell, we might have to connect you for audio through the Crestron system on your cell phone. Just hang tough for a second.
I think I've got it on my phone.
Hello?
Hi, Councillor Mandela. Can you hear us through your cell phone?
Yes.
I think we're having audio issues. So if you keep your cell phone on when you want to speak, just put up your hand on the Zoom so we can still see your face, and then just keep the cell phone going if possible.
Okay. Is it working for Councillor Jones?
No, she's doing the same thing. You're on line 2 and she's
Thank you.
on line 1. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, so we're on to item 6 of the agenda. So we're under public input period. So persons recognized by the chair to speak must first state their name and address. For the record, may speak for up to 2 minutes unless council resolves otherwise, and are limited to providing comment regarding items listed on this evening's agenda. Comments must be directed to the chair and not to be directed to individual members of council, staff, or the audience. It must not include personal issues. We have one person in the gallery. And Councilor Mandel, I think you're just gonna have to mute yourself on your Zoom because it's periodic.
Sorry?
You're just gonna have to mute yourself because I think it's coming through periodically,
Oh,
unless you can do it.
okay.
Is it?
I have it muted now. Or, well, I will
Okay.
have it muted now. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
So can I hang up my cell phone then?
No, keep the cell phone going. Yeah, okay, anyways, we'll just continue on. So we got one member in the gallery and no public input this evening, okay. And anybody remotely registered? Okay, thank you. All right, so that moves us on to legislative matters. So we have District of Lantzville 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 429, 2026. Director Sapola, I believe you're going to give us a presentation, and council has a copy of it in their agenda materials. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So I thought I'd prepare a financial presentation, just to clarify a few things with council, like where we're going, on our dates. So March 18 today.
Pardon me,
we're
Director
hoping.
Sepola, just put it really close to your mouth so that the sound comes through well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. On March 18, which is today, we're hoping for first and second reading of bylaw, of the financial plan bylaw. Decisions required for taxation increase, operations, and capital plans. We're hoping for some more definitive answers. We've been getting some questions through and things like that, and trying to get them answered as thoroughly as possible. We're hoping to answer any outstanding questions today with council. And then, so we're also hoping that we can get approval to move to public consultation process. It's kind of the drop dead date. We need to get this out there. We need to follow the legislation for consultation. And then we're going to bring back for third reading on April 15 is the plan, and bring back any public feedback we would have heard from the general citizenry. Cumulative analysis. The cumulative analysis of any direction from council for final changes. And then do another presentation of the financial plan in total before we do the third reading. We would be doing anything that may have changed through council direction received today will be included into the final plan for third reading. April 22nd would be the adoption of the financial plan. And then at that point in time, we'd do first, second, and third reading of the tax rate bylaw. And then on May 6th, we'll get the adoption of the tax rate bylaw, and also planned for May 6th is the financial statement presentation from MNP and that should be quite informative. I wanted to include a summary of the motions that we've received to date. Like, for example, we have this long one with regard to a lot of the capital plan stuff. We do have a few that are still outstanding with council that we need direction on. Hopefully we'll get those covered tonight. And then additional motions on the public workshop and so on and so forth, wellfield security. Okay. Sorry, I'm just flipping through. And then in aligning with Council Strategic Goal 18, we want to establish the strategic infrastructure priorities that support Council, the strategic goals 20 and 21. The road maintenance program is an annual program that we'd like to do that will encompass all road maintenance. So that was given in total. We have received some information, and it's encouraging. We got an encouraging quote for the crack sealing program, for example, and it's as planned with Public Works. It came in as in a good range, so that was quite encouraging. And we're still seeking quotes and things like that. We've got one so far, and so we should be able to procure a couple others as we're following the purchasing policy. The road renewals that we're doing are Dickinson Road, Alger, and Phantom Road. Phantom Road moved from an asphalt replacement to a chip seal. So just as a clarity for council, it was last year, it was in the 2025 budget to move forward, and we did get a tender, but that tender was exceeded the budget by quite a lot, and it was decided that Phantom Road at that point could remain a chip seal road, and then to bring it back in 2026 as amended. Alger Road is also planned. It's going to be around the culvert. We're moving forward with getting that into design phase so that we can get a good idea of how that's going to look. Dickinson Road, the panels are ready as council instructed for review by staff for the open house that we were directed to do by council. So that's also moving forward. The facilities in the capital list include the new fire hall, which is grant dependent, a public works facility, district office expansion within the current footprint. So we're going to be contained within the building, and we found a bit of room, and we're going to try and make better use of the space in here. The fire department equipment plan renewals are a fire truck, turnout gear, and a decontamination machine. Earlier this year, earlier in 2025, the chief had been hopeful that there might be a grant available, but with the current changes to what the BC government is doing, all of those grants have been pulled, and so we're moving forward with requesting a decontamination machine in this budget year. Huddlestone Accessible Playground, you guys have seen that. I heard some comments around it. It's looking really good over there. Water infrastructure improvements, Lynn Millard water line, as that was a carry forward project and had been awarded in the prior year, that construction is taking place as we speak. Harwood Reservoir expansion is grant dependent. The Winds water system, the wellfield security and protection enhancement. We're getting some quotes in on that to get some good information in. And again, it's aligning with what's in the budget, so that's very encouraging on those quotes. We're moving forward with with some of the capital that had already been previously approved by council to make sure that we stay on track for completion in the current year. Sewer infrastructure program, the lift station odor control, and stormwater drainage culvert replacement on Rumming Road. That's going to be ready to go out to tender on Monday. So we should be seeing that shortly. We do have to get licensing for being in at Bloods Creek. On Alger, Lantzville, the Dickinson Road also includes Bloods Creek culvert, but that the phasing is going to cut off close to that, so it may come in the second year as opposed to the first year. So, but the project manager is dealing with that and making recommendations around that based on the assessment of the structure that he sees. Continue the asset management plan that supports future budgets for Council Strategic Goal number 16. The Lantzville infrastructure mapping update for roads, water, sewer, stormwater drainage, and walking, cycling networks. Key infrastructure study updates to inform the asset management plan. So from all of the information that we've been gathering, now we're starting to pull it into the plan is to start pulling it into the software that we already own. I had looked at at other softwares, but where we already have licensing and pay for licensing, and it's useful to finance because it does the amortization calculation. That's why Citywide is still our software that we're using. And then continuation of the active transportation plan. This is a carry forward from the prior year. So the 2026 proposed financial plan revenue. So I did up a summary in my information. So as you can see, it's 3.5 million, which is an increase of 5% over the 2025 actual revenues that were collected. We did receive some adjustments, and we do have the growth. I did put a bit of hedging in there because people have an opportunity to write in and give their opinion on their assessments and maybe get BC Assessment to change their minds. So I wanted to hedge that a little bit. But the 3.5 million is based on the assessments that we have received to date. Payments in lieu of taxes is 62,000. Parcel taxes, 598,000. Sales and service is estimated at 1.654. Government transfers is fairly substantial. That is the WINS grant. These are all the capital and the operating grants that are being used to fund capital projects, and other revenue is 3.1. So the structure of the financial plan funding that will appear in the bylaw is as follows. Property taxes you see at 15%. And again, it's because we're putting so much infrastructure through on government transfers, it shows a 62%. Normally, you'll see it as 45 to 50% of our income does come from property taxes. The proposed in the operating plan, the expenses by department are here for council to look at. General government services, 2 million. Building inspection, 245. Bylaw enforcement, 81,000. Community and development services, which is your planning department, 369,000. Protective services, 679,000. Environmental services, public works and transportation services, 900, sorry. Environmental services, 352. Public works and transportation services, 937. Recreation and cultural services, 260. Sewer, 311. Water, 849. Interest on debt is 39,000, and amortization, which is not funded by taxation, it is offset through a transfer from capital equity of 1.13. The proposed capital financial plan funds expenses by expenses. So capital is 19 million, which is mostly the fire hall. And the grant update that I got the last time for the fire hall was that they were delayed, and we won't be hearing back maybe in June or July. So we won't be hearing back from them for a little bit longer. The sanitary sewer capital is 380, and water capital is 14.6 million. Proposed financial reserve summaries. So the transfers to reserve are 1.9 million, and we are transferring out a considerable amount of 7.4 million rounding, again, to support capital projects. It is to note, though, of the 7.3, 200,000 is coming from the transportation reserve to fund the road repairs, the road maintenance plan. And the impact of taxation and utility rates on the average single residential dwelling, the average home in Lantzville is $1.128 million. So in this chart, I wanted to show how much impact would be to the municipal property taxes based on a 5% increase. And it would be $81, and the water user fee has increased, so that was $19. The sewer user fee has passed through in the municipal fees and rates bylaw that we did, and that's $18. The residential garbage collection was $10 on the average household, and that was based on a 240-liter tote. So the total overall increase to the residents is, if you've got the parcel tax, you can see it there, it is $127. And you can see it broken down to each of the different phases of the parcel tax on the sewer, and if you don't pay parcel tax at all. One of the things that was available was the comparison of municipal taxes per capita. I thought it was an interesting statistic to review with council. This was information that was provided under municipal general and financial statistics by the province of British Columbia. Lantzville, the municipal taxes, residential taxes per person is $731. And so we're on the lower end of our area. You can I did my best to select the just go along the coastline and take those ones as the samples. going up to Qualicum Beach and then going down toward Duncan. And something that I also found very interesting was the comparison percentage of total taxation and total assessment, residential assessment. So of all the assessment that we have, 96% of our assessment comes from the residential base. And the residential base supports 83% of the total tax collection for Lantzville. And then I have the other communities there for you to look at as well. It's interesting because like in Courtney, for example, 89% of their tax base or their assessment base is residential, but 65% of the taxes come from the residential base, indicating that they have a large commercial base to draw from, or that they have more coming from the commercial base than what we would have available. And that's my presentation.
Oops, great. Thank you for that. And through to council questions. So go ahead, Councillor Lerner. And then once we get the screen up, I can see if either Councillor Mundell or Jones.
Sure, thank you, Worship. My question is pertaining to the slide. Let me just get it here. It's the slide that says 2026 to 2030 proposed financial plan revenue summary by type. And also it relates to the percentages on the next slide. So my question is with regard to government transfers. It's noted that in an average year, we get transfer between $800,000 and $1 million. And this year it's 14.6, if I understand correctly.
Yep.
When I add up the grants we're waiting to hear about, it's 7 million for Fire Hall, 5 million approximately would be the Winds Water, and 1 million potentially for Harvard Reservoir expansion. So if I get that, I just want to make sure I get this correct. That's $13 million in grant funding. So the 14.6 transfer, am I correct that 13 million of that is grant, and that those projects would only proceed if one, the grant's approved, and two, council authorizes any sort of project or borrowing bylaw associated with it?
So through the chair, the WINS grant is already in hand, so it wouldn't be part of your 13 million calculation, but we are waiting for the 7 million and the 1 million application word back on those two, so it'd be the 8 million. Other grants that are in here that we were waiting on to hear from, sorry, I'm just gonna go to the paper, wanna make sure I get this right. The Harwood Water Reservoir expansion, the tennis court rehabilitation are grant dependent, and the fire hall, yes.
Thank you. May I have a follow-up? Yeah. So when it comes to the grant for the Winds Water, which is contingent on the project proceeding, is that included in the 14.6 of government transfers?
Yes, that is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So without those grants, that leaves approximately 1.6 million not grant funded.
In other grants.
In other grants?
Yeah,
Okay.
in other grants that we already have in hand, like the gas tax grants and things along those natures, growing communities. Right, those are ones we have in hand, so I would have used those as well.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Additional questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, so thanks very much, Director Sapola, for this was a difficult budget this year because it was somewhat new for a lot of people, and we struggled through it. I think next year will be far smoother with the system in place now. And my question, are you confident we'll be able to fund our reserves the main reserves, the same as they were the previous few years? And why is it they're always funded at the end? I know it's difficult to know how much is left over in surplus, et cetera, but it would be good to hear that again, why they're funded at the end, and if you're confident they can be all funded as much as usual.
we're just beginning the process of the year end. And so I fund them at the end just to ensure 100% of what all the operating expenses are. I can fund them in the beginning, and then my concern is that sometimes we have lines that run over. For example, we had a couple of expenses that didn't have budget lines on them, like consulting and things like that. We also overran pavement repairs. That budget was cut in half, and unfortunately, Public Works wasn't able to complete all their work within that budget. So we were trying to manage it within the envelope to make sure that we didn't overspend the entire operational budget. Then we have other things that come forward, like we didn't spend, there was no snow, so we spent very little of the snow budget. So we want to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as it possibly can. And, you know, it's, you plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? That's budgeting 101 for accountants. So that's why I do the transfers at the end, because I don't want to create a deficit and then have to come to council. I want to make sure that everything is in place. I am confident that I will be able to fund the reserves to the budget, the 2025 budgeted levels as laid out in the financial plan. There were a couple of tricky bits in water operations. We had a few adjustments and things like that I want to be certain of and go through with a fine-tooth comb. That's my normal process during a financial year end. And then, sorry, I forget your other question.
No, that was it. That's great. So we'll learn soon enough then how they're funded, so.
Yeah, and I do lay out some interest challenges. Interest rates were maintained today at 2.2, the Bank of Canada one, 2.2, but inflation might rise again. We're definitely seeing that coming up with the price of gas and things like that. You know, it's one of our primary things we buy is petroleum products.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Through the rest of the council. Any questions regarding the presentation? I just had one quick one. I'm trying to find in the budget where we have the road maintenance program item, even if it's a line item number, or I just want to make sure it's, I don't know if it's council's understanding this is going to be the program's confirmed. Because it is for 200,000, but I'm trying to find it. Unless somebody else knows the line. Go ahead, Councilor Lerner.
I don't have the exact line item in front of me, but I believe it was a transfer from reserve. If I may have that wrong, but I believe it was under transfer from reserve, it was 250,000 or something like that, but I'd have to find the exact one.
Okay. So through to Director Sapola, is that going to be, is it 200 or 250,000?
It's 200,000. There was money getting transferred in for election expenses from the financial reserve. But if you look on page 20 of the agenda,
Hold on. Sorry. Got too much paper.
oh, sorry,
Hold on, page
got
20
the-
in this one, yeah.
so about, on the fourth section down, that's labeled roads. It's the last item in that section labeled roads, and it's called pavement repair, and you'll see it there for $240,740. I think I've got the right,
Roads,
so,
pavement repair. Okay, I see
Yep.
it there and going all, okay, so, yeah, it's in the pink there.
yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
And that's gonna be transferred out of the
The
roads?
transportation
Or
reserve, yep.
transportation, okay.
Yeah.
So just so I clearly understand that, so we're gonna be transferring in, I think it's the magnitude of $190,000. And then taking out,
200.
yeah, 200, and then the rest is gonna be,
Yeah, we're going to be, I went back through and made sure that the interest allocation was also completed. And so on page 32 of your package, you'll see the updated transfer numbers.
the mad shuffle. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that page. I
Yeah.
need I had to, I can't read, well, maybe with my glasses today.
Yeah, sorry.
The
It's
microfiche
just a
page.
lot of information on that one.
But this would be under the transportation infrastructure again?
Yeah, and so we have a net transfer in to the transportation reserve. So it's an increase to 106,000.
Okay,
Of interest money, so assigning 106,000 of interest to this reserve, and a net transfer of 90,182 from the operating. So of the money being transferred in, I took 200,000 out, and that's why I'm saying it's a net transfer of 90,182. And then the interest transferred in is 106,980.
okay. All right,
But we do run that reserve down into the negatives by 2027, and that is because of the acceleration of the Dickinson Road project to take place in 2 years. It was the recommendation of the engineers that we do it in 2 years. He said that 3 years was stretching it too far and that we may have to pay additional costs if we were going to take it out that far. So he recommended a 2-year build. And also, it reduces the inconvenience to the neighborhood and the disruption in that area.
yeah, okay, sorry, I just have a follow-up to that. Okay, yeah, so I think the numbers from the last time we had that, I guess, page 32 have been slightly updated from a previous version.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just slightly, because I think it
Yeah.
was like 190-ish.
Yeah,
Now it's
it
like
was
190. Was it actually, yeah, almost 200,000. Does it actually add up to 200?
It doesn't quite get there.
Close enough, okay.
Yeah,
Not to
it's
belabor
close,
it.
but it's not quite.
Yeah, so, with roads, and I know this is how has been done in the past, usually, the reserve contributions kind of done at the end of the budgeting, because that's just to find out what money's left and where to put it. In 2022, we were at about 680,000 for transfer into roads, then in 2023, 650, 2024, 451, 2025, 188, and then this year, we're just under 200,000. So it's been trending down. And then it kind of leads me into my next question. It's clear that it's going to be basically fully depleted in 2 years' time, our reserves for roads. But my question has to do more with the cost of borrowing. If we're going to be anticipating borrowing about 2.5 million to go towards Dickinson, what's going to be the cost of borrowing and term of borrowing?
In Dickinson, it's going to be 4.4% is the last number that I got from MFA. And the length of the borrowing would be to the maximum of the road life, which would be 25 years.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Councillor.
Yes, thank you. This was something I was trying to get my head around because previously, when we did the 2025 capital plan, we were told that we were contributing 660 70,000 to roads, and that part of that was transferred direct in and part of that was interest. Now, I understand the final numbers for 2025 are still being figured out through the audit process and the transfer. But what I'm trying to understand and go through your worship to staff is with regard to transportation infrastructure reserve. I'm just trying to get this zoomed in on my thing here. It looks like without Dickinson, there would be a surplus in 2027, but with Dickinson, there would be a deficit because the engineers have now recommended speeding up the project. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, the pace at which the pace at which the roads are being replaced is because of the condition of the infrastructure. Usually it's it's trying to get the culverts replaced at the same, that need replacement, and do the roads at the same time, or a portion, or a decent sized portion thereof, because that's the best use of the money. That's where you get, you know, you're doing two things at once. It's kind of like if you have a water line project, you try and time it along with the roads. That's just, you know, you don't have to pay the mobilization costs twice for the same project, or go back and rip up a road that you just replaced 5 years before, things like that. So you want to try and time it together. So Algers has a culvert that needed replacement. So the recommendation from the previous director of Public Works and engineers was to do Algers in 2026, and Dickinson was delayed. It was supposed to start last year. It's a carry forward project, but it didn't get going. And Rumming Road and Lantzville, Bloods Creek, and so it's kind of the perfect storm we've got going on right now. We've got the projects kind of conflagrating all in 1 year. When you look out at the later years, 29 and 30, there's hardly anything going on. I'm sure that I'll be able to find something though for those years. I'm quite confident. But you know, I mean, it's just that there's a lot that needs, that they're recommending should get replaced. So we're trying to time it, and it is running into a problem. That's what's happening.
If I just may have a follow-up. So the reason I ask about that in particular is that I'm looking at this chart, and it's called District of Lantzville Draft Projected Restricted Reserves Transactions 2026 to 2030. And for the Transportation Infrastructure Reserve, if I'm looking at the right one, it shows on 2027, that's when it'll hit a deficit of 139,000 as
Yes.
the estimated closing. So it shows a surplus in a balanced surplus, the estimated 2026 closing of over 1.2 million. And then it shows that, if I'm reading this correctly, 2027 estimated closing negative 139. However, one of the things I had inquired previously was that we were estimated to receive $700,000 in DCCs from the long-term care facility. And when I inquired in the meeting, I was told that a reasonable portion of those DCCs could go to Dickinson Road, because on their transportation plan and a study evaluation, they had indicated an increase of traffic on Dickinson Road, and that a portion of the DCCs was specifically for roads. So I'm wondering how much, and we may not have the answer tonight, but how much of the $700,000 in DCCs from the long-term care can go towards Dickinson Road? Because if that's the case, that let's say even a quarter of them could go there, it might negate the need to have any deficit in the reserve.
Thank you. For your question, it's very thoughtful. In reviewing the DCCs from 2018, which is the document that is active, it has an amount assigned to Dickinson. I have assigned that full amount to Dickinson. I can't exceed that amount, even though we have more in DCCs collected than what Dickinson will be using. I've done the same with the stormwater collection, like the drainage collection, because there was There's the drainage collection and the road collection. I have used maximum amount available for Dickinson and Algers and Bloods Creek on Lantzville Road. So I've maxed out those withdrawals from those DCC amounts.
Okay, great, thank you. If I may have one more follow-up. So if I understand correctly, in order to fund Dickinson Road over 2 years instead of 3 or 4, we could potentially borrow to speed things up, and it would be at a rate of approximately 4.4% over approximately 25 years. When it comes to the portion of Dickinson Road that we would have to borrow, am I understanding correctly that that it would be somewhere between, if the estimate is correct, of course, 140,000 essentially, because that's the amount that the reserve would be in deficit, or is it greater than that?
I would borrow independent. When I say I'm going to borrow for Dickinson Road, just give me a second and I'll calculate what I'm going to borrow. So, yeah, borrowing 3. So borrowing 3,024,000.
3,024,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that because the road project itself is $5 million. But what I've done is I've combined, I had the drainage system on a separate project. So I've added it into this project so that it gets done together.
Thank you. Okay, well, we're not yet at a stage where we're deciding on a design or a borrowing bylaw for Dickinson, so I'll leave it at that. I guess I'm confused because we were originally provided a quote with 2.5 million to repave Dickinson, and then the path would be extra, so I don't understand how it got to 5.
Well, the original quote for Dickinson was actually 4.3, right? And so I added in the culvert because they were originally 2 different projects. And when you were presented with the 4.3, we needed to include the culvert in that number.
Sorry to belabor, just to make sure I understand. The 4.3 for Dickinson, because originally in a previous meeting, it was 2.5. I just want to understand maybe I'm misunderstanding something. The 4.3, does that include the pathways, or what's included in the 4.3?
The 4.3 is the base road. There's no pathways in that. There's no enhanced drainage in that project as yet, but we do have, council instructed us to do the open house and get public feedback directly with Dickinson. It is to note that the $5 million is for the base road and the culvert project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then council can always amend a financial plan in the future if council hears back from the public and they want a pathway, council can amend.
Okay. Just real brief to follow up on that, and then I got Councillor Jones. Yeah, so it's great to hear this could be 2 years and or done in 2 phases instead of over 3, and I think at one point is maybe even going to be 4 years. So that's fantastic because any road or construction project is disruptive, and to have it going over multiple years would be highly annoying, I'm sure. The one thing I did just more recently is I brought into focus with all these reserve balances and so forth, how it matched up with our financial policy 3009-2. And it has to do with our reserve funds and the levels that were recommended, and which in some ways it was by another, it was an interim director of finance. However, it's kind of like a third party, consultant doing some important work for us. But when it comes to the roads, just trying to find it here. I'm going to do it off my phone, unfortunately. Just bear with me. Transportation Infrastructure Reserve Fund. If we have an or a minimum level in our reserves, should be at 3.9 million. And if we have optimal level of funding in our reserves sitting there, it's 5.850 million. Oh, thank you. And then basically where things are left at the end of 2026, we'll have in reserves, by the looks of it, 1,228,801 dollars. And when you look at how that compares to the minimum level, it'd be about 32% of the minimum level that should be sitting in reserves. And then in respect to the optimal level, about 21%. So what I'm trying to point out here is, our reserve levels, as being recommended by, someone who has a wealth of experience in local government finances and so forth, they're really falling below the mark where we should be sitting. And, the point I'm really driving at here too is in terms of lost revenue from interest, it has a primary effect on that because there's less money in reserves. And what our financial guru told us at the time was, the more money you have sitting in the reserves, the more revenue you get from that in terms of interest. So by this one particular reserve fund, which is usually quite, does usually have more money in it, is, being depleted. We're now relying on borrowing, which is going to cost us money, and we're losing revenue money from interest. So anyways, it's just the predicament we're in. Roads have gotten a lot more expensive over the last couple of years. So it's just the hand we've been dealt. Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you. Audio okay? You can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Sapolo, thank you for all the work that you've done. Unfortunately, when Councillor Mandel was added, the audio feed for me cut off, so I did not actually hear your presentation. So I apologize if I'm asking a question that you've already answered in the presentation. I'm wondering if you can just speak a little bit, please, to the differences between the two columns on pages 15 going onwards. The one in blue, which is the 2026 budget, and then the one in pink, which is the 2026 revised budget. From what I can see, there's very little in there that was council-initiated changes, but there are quite a lot of changes to those numbers, and I'm not able to determine, my apologies if I'm just not finding it, what the difference is at the end when you summarize all of the numbers between the two columns. So could you just speak to them, please, and shed some light on that?
So the 2026 budget in the blue column was the original budget that I started the process with. That was part of your 2025 through 29 budget that was passed last year. So I took the 2026 budget and I reviewed it with the staff, so individually, and we went through and we made the changes that were necessitated by operational needs.
Okay, thank you. And then if I can have a follow-up question, please. In the 2025 budget, there are actual year-to-date, which I gather is not really actual year-to-date yet because there are still some expenses and numbers to come into that column. So if I'm wrong there, please correct me. But I do see that where we have not spent all of the money budgeted for in 2025. It's not showing yet in the actual. I do see that it is estimated to be used again. It's been carried forward, it would appear, to the 2026 budget. So $10,000 not spent that was needed will be spent, and then 2026, that same total amount is usually presented as the 2026 budget, if you see what I mean. My question is, if there is money which is unused when you have the final numbers for actual in 2025, where does that money go? Does it all go to the same place, into a general accumulated, or what? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any monies that are left in operating in the general fund flow through to accumulated surplus unless otherwise directed by council. In the reserve policy, it instructs me to bring forward a suggestion at the end of the year to council if staff feels that it's appropriate to transfer additional funds to, say, the transportation road reserve. Like if this year, if we go through and at the end of the year, it's found that there's a surplus in transportation, namely because the money wasn't used for snow clearing. The Director of Finance can bring forward a report to request council amend the financial plan and assign more of that into the transportation reserve. It is possible.
Okay, thank you. So this year, then, have we been able to add to that accumulated surplus by underspending the budgeted amounts for 2025, or is that yet to be determined?
I haven't finished the year-end process yet. That's in progress right now, and you'd likely see a report sometime before the finalization of the financial statements.
Good. I think, well, we need that before we can approve the budget, I would think. So you're anticipating to have some...
I'm sorry that the timing would not work out on that at all. I wouldn't be finishing... I wouldn't be finishing the year end before I finish budget, and I need the budget in time for the tax rate bylaw.
I see, okay. So then looking at the 2026 revised budget, can you give an indication of how much more, how much that has increased over the 2026 budget when you add up all of the increases? Most of them are increases, there may be some decreases, but what's the net impact there, please? Because the 2026 budget that's shown in blue is very similar to the 2025 budget, but the 2026 budget revised is quite different. I'm trying to figure out how much the increase is.
I don't have that number in front of me. The main point is that taxes have increased by 5%. There's other items that have increased as well, but I've focused on the taxes as operational needs are moving forward. The only thing that we've added in personnel is the Public Works maintenance too. Otherwise, it's fairly status quo. The election is there, but that's being funded by the transfer from reserve.
I see. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Lerner, go ahead.
Yeah, just two things. The first is just with regards to the previous question. I think I tried to do some basic math, and I think the original 2025 budget was based on a tax increase of 6.5%, and now the revised budget is based on a tax increase of 5%. So the operating, the difference, the net difference is a decrease between 2025 budget and to revise 2025 budget when it comes to the operation. Is that correct?
The 26 budget?
Or the 26 budget, rather, yeah.
I believe she's referring to the original 2026 budget that was derived from your 25-29 plan.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah,
in other words, when we approved the 2025 budget,
Yeah.
we were approving a 5-year financial plan because we're
Exactly.
required to.
Yeah.
So the placeholders for 2026, I understand. Okay, so
Yeah.
every year we approve a 5-year financial
Exactly.
plan, and we just put placeholders for the other years. The revised budget is what we're actually budgeting, which is the 5% increase, whereas previous, in 2025, we just had placeholders.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then if I may ask my other question, it's regarding borrowing for Dickinson Road again, just regarding reserves. I see our 2025 estimated closing budget is to have just shy of $15.7 million in reserves. And then our 2026 closing budget, once we spend all the grants and everything that are sitting there, is to have just under 8.9 million in reserves. So if I understand we can do internal borrowing. If we were going to borrow some million dollars for Dickinson Road, would it not make sense to borrow it from our own reserve funds and pay ourselves the interest? Or is that not doable?
You can borrow from reserves, but you have to pay back yourself. The rule is you have to pay back yourself by the time the next project is due. We wouldn't have enough time to repay it. But
I see, I understand.
question.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Savage?
Yep, so I do have 4 quick motions for the budget. However, after second reading would be the correct time to do those?
Well, right now, we're just kind of doing any questions regarding the presentation and where the
All right.
budget's at, but we can, if council's satisfied that they've had all their questions answered and are prepared to move on, then I will try and find my way here in my, there we go, paperwork. Are there any further questions or comments?
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just make a quick comment, then I'm ready to make the motion for the passing the budget. I just wanted to point out that it's over $6 million without Dickinson Road in our capital items there. I haven't added up the exact amount, but I know it's over $6 million. So we have 4 culverts, Alger, Rumming, 2 on Bloods Creek. They're about $500,000 apiece, they end up being. We have a new fire engine, $1.2 million. We're repaving Alger Road. We're doing Phantom Road with a new chip seal. We're doing a big $700,000 water main replacement, reservoir upgrade, and so on. So any of these we could be using borrowed money for. It just happens to be Dickinson, unfortunately, that the borrowing is being applied to, $1,512,000. And so it leaves the impression that somehow we've been underfunding road reserves, but the road reserves are funding the past few years all these culverts and other items that have to do with road work. So I just didn't want to leave the false impression there with that. So other than that, I'm all set for moving on to the financial plan first reading.
Sure, and as a closing kind of remark as well, so I went again, as I was going through the exercise of looking at the, what the recommended levels of our reserves are and so forth, and plunking it into a fancy spreadsheet and so forth. What it ends up being, and I didn't have, this isn't complete information, mostly complete, I just didn't have a couple reserve balances, but my estimates is, the decrease or change from 2025 to 2026 for our reserves is over 40%. The number I calculated was about 43%. But we have to remember the primary effect of this is there's going to be less money we're collecting interest from, so it's less revenue for next, for 2027 and moving forward. So it's just something to keep in mind. In terms of reserve balances, we have a policy that governs that, and we clearly are underfunded in our reserves. Sure, we're going to meet the, for this year's budget, we'll have the money in reserves for, for the projects that we're approving this year. But what I mean underfunded is they're not at a high enough reserve levels, and now we're going to have to rely on increased borrowing. And, you know, one can argue why that's is, but, you know, what I've had in my discussions with staff and with others is that, you know, it's the primary effect of having lower taxes. We're just not putting as much money into our reserves. And as we've heard in the conversation so far this evening, you know, when staff gets to the end of the budget cycle, then they're looking at where do we put the, you know, the remaining money that's left over into reserves. And we've had a declining road reserve since 2022. And I read it out at the beginning of this evening, and you can't ignore it. It's a fact that we've had declining reserves. And the only way to offset that is by putting more taxation into reserves. So I don't know if it's going to be supported, but, you know, I might try my luck later on in the agenda to, you know, increase our taxation to 6.5 and add whatever it is, another $46,000 to our road reserves. But we'll see where that goes. Additional comments? Go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Just a question through to staff, and then I'm just trying to do a calculation here. How much is 1% of taxation in total revenue collected? Is it 38,000, or I was trying to understand?
It's just under 34,000.
Just under 34,000. And how much would we need to borrow for Dickinson Road?
3,048,000.
Okay, so just approximately 3 million, and divide that by 34,000. So we would have to increase taxes this year by 88.2% in order to fully fund Dickinson Road. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Your math
thank
sounds
you.
right.
Thank you.
So Councillor Savage, are you prepared to get first reading on the?
Yes, thank you. That District of Lantzville 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 429, 2026 be given first reading.
Is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Lerner, and then for there's no discussion. It's just getting introduced. So I'll just move to call in the question on first reading. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously by the looks of things. And then if you want to get second reading going.
Yes, thank you. That District of Lantzville 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 429 to 2026 be given second reading.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Lerner. And then for discussion and amendments, motions, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. I have four quick ones here. And first, I just wanted to point out respectfully, Mayor Swain, that with the contributions for 2026 to our transportation reserve, they have not been done yet. And my expectation will be 680,000. The only year, this year it was 650, 680, and 451 it appears, but we directed 680, and we were assured by our interim finance director that our reserves would be fully funded, and we were never told. We just found out in the past month that 2025 was not funded to 680 like we directed, so it's not declining in my mind, except for
Okay, so
that.
I'm going to call a point of information and get staff to answer it directly right now to clarify it so it doesn't go on all the evening. So through to staff, if you can comment on what the reserve contributions to transportation have mean since even like 2024, 2025, because my understanding and reading the financial plan is it's not the case. 2024 was like 451, and then it goes to 188 in 2025, and this year it's, I'll let you speak to it.
Sorry,
Director Spola.
I'm just turning to the page. Just give me a moment.
This is one of these cases where I'd love to be wrong.
So the Transportation Reserve received a transfer of $451,500 in 2024. And before that, in 2023, it was 680. That was the road reserve in those days. And 2022 was 650. So last year it was less. It only received the 451,000.
I thought last year was 188.
And then, well, this year,
Or-
in 2025, sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, is 188,377, and it'll also receive a portion of the interest. So it'll be 188 plus an amount of interest once it's calculated.
Yes, well, thank you. I've corrected that previously for 2024. We fully funded it to 680, but we'll deal with that outside the meeting.
Hold on,
That
Councillor
was the-
Savage, I believe staff has correctly answered it.
Okay, well-
And what is fact is fact, it's,
Okay, well, I'm speaking it as my opinion, so I
well, then
can
clearly say it's your
prove it.
opinion, but it's not
Or
fact.
it's my
Fact is what
opinion, and
staff-
I can prove that for 2024, we did fund it. And as council will recall, that was the year that Director Liu was here, and we found out late in the game that the road reserves and a couple of others hadn't been fully funded. So we spent a whole meeting making sure they were funded by drawing from various grants and so on. So I can show you all that. It's right in the video, so. at
Okay,
any
Councillor
rate-
Savage, what's important though is what's in the financial plan, which all of staff have been working on, council has. This is the working document that outlines the history. I understand what you're saying, but it's important that we share factual, that's what maybe it didn't carry forward through the financial plan as council has anticipated it was, but it doesn't change the fact that what the amounts that have gone into reserves, and I'm sure staff will further look into it.
Yeah, we'll get that maybe next meeting. So the first one, please, on page 16. This is all in the same format, the language. On page 16, that the 2026 to 2030 financial plan be amended in line item 01510564, convention meeting council, by reducing 25,400 to 10,000 and placing the savings into the council one-time project reserve.
Sorry, I'm kind of confused which motion.
Your worship, it's not in the package that was handed out. This is a newly presented motion from Councillor Savage that we
Okay,
were just
that's-
handed tonight.
Hence the confusion. Okay,
Yes.
Sorry, what's the line item again, Councillor Savage?
Yeah, it's 01510,
On page 16?
564 on page 16. And that's about 2/3 of the way down the page.
Okay, is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Jones, okay. Sorry, you said it was halfway down and council,
Yeah, it's just below, 3 below the heading General Government, Mayor and Council.
okay, there, so, okay, 510, 564?
Yeah, and it's currently 25. It's just to fund
Okay,
members of council for AVICC and so on, UBCM.
yeah. All right, go ahead, for
So,
discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just basically that there's only 2 members that have been going to UBCM and IVICC. I trust that'll be the same this year, so, and that's far more than enough, 25,400. So the idea of reducing it down to $10,000, that'll be more than enough for 2 members of council to go. And the reason I'm suggesting we put it into the council one-time projects reserve, because if we're ever caught with someone else wanting to go, we simply fund it out of the one-time projects reserve. And by doing this, it will, by helping to fund the one-time projects reserve, which is usually 50,000 every year, with this fund, it will help needing less money that can go to other reserves is the idea.
Counselor Jones is the seconder.
Yes, thank you. When we look at the budget, we see that the amount spent to go to conventions was a little bit higher than normal in 2025. We had a couple members of council go to FCM, which was an opportunity to search out and apply and hopefully obtain some grants. So that was great, but it's not an expense that we expect to have every year. So I would see, even if we did things as we have done in the last few years, there'd be no need to have the expense as high as it was. But I also feel that there really isn't any need for all on council to be attending these conventions every year. We can be more efficient with our budgeting and have a couple of members of council go, and we can have council discussions beforehand on key things, and we can have a debrief after, and I think that can save some money there. So I'm fully in support of the motion, and as Councillor Savage has said, if it does turn out there is the funds that we've allocated are insufficient, the one-time project reserve is a way for that additional member of council to ask to go and attend a conference.
For myself and then Councillor Lerner. So for myself, yeah, this one's interesting. I wish I had known ahead of time that this was going to be an item, because then I probably wouldn't have registered for AVICC or FCM. I'm on the fence about UBCM, but nonetheless, you know, since becoming elected mayor, you know, last term, tried to promote a culture on council that if members of this council want to go to events, then they would be afforded the ability to go to that, and they wouldn't have to get into any kind of weird asks or pleas of council. It would just be a culture where people are supported and further their endeavors to become more educated or experienced in local government. No different than how we support our staff and attending conferences and so forth. So for me, you know, this one, you know, again, I wish I had the heads up, because I've already have flights booked to Edmonton and hotels booked, and my registration fee just paid just earlier this week. So I'm sure between AVICC and FCM, you know, and with another member going out, it's going to be pushing the limits and so forth. So anyways, it's unfortunate this is coming up last minute. Don't know why, but you know, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not in the millions of dollars like roads and things like that. But I'll leave my comments there for now. Councillor Lerner, go ahead.
Yes, I will be voting against this for a number of reasons. The first, as Mayor Swain said, is that this is way too late in the game to be changing this, because we have already had to register for these things at the end of 2025 and beginning of 2026. So if we were changing this for 2027, I might vote in favor. But at this point, we're basically taking money out of one thing and putting it into one-time projects reserve, which might be spent on this anyway. So it feels like no offense, but a bit of a shell game to take one thing out of one line item that's going to be used for this and put it into another line item that might be used for this. It doesn't change taxation at all. It doesn't save the taxpayers any money. I didn't get to speak to the budget before a motion was made, even though I was the seconder, so I'll speak now and say that I support the 5%. It's what we asked for. This motion won't decrease or increase taxation. All it will do is move money from one spot to another. One thing I would also say is that there are a number of problems with this. First is that it contravenes our expense reimbursement policy for these conventions, so we would have to amend the policy. The policy basically states that any organization to which we have a membership, which is UBCM, AVICC, and FCM, council members can attend. So if we're going to decrease the budget, it's a false narrative. It's telling the taxpayers that somehow less money is being spent, but it's not true. The money would still have to be spent because our policy requires that they be covered. The second thing is that we already are required to pay dues to these organizations, which have to come out of that budget. So it would be also a false narrative to tell people that money was being reduced on this expense because we would just have to go over budget on it. The third thing is I agree with the idea that previously it was very much limited who would attend these things, and it was detrimental to the community because you had counselors who were vying for favoritism. You had people who were basically saying, it's my turn to go, I'm going to fight you over this. And I saw it happen as a citizen. I saw the posturing. I saw people basically, without naming names, trying to vie for spots. And it created an atmosphere of tension. It created an atmosphere of competition. And it was poor for the community and for the conduct of council. So I think it's actually fostering a very poor environment in our community. It also rewards those who may have more financial means of their own. If you're someone who can afford to attend on your own dime, you can go. And if you are someone who does not have that kind of funding of your own money, you can't go because there might not be enough. And to me, that is creating a multi-tier environment in our council, and it is not necessarily helping the taxpayers. So I think it's just wrong all around, and I'll be voting against this. I think it creates, to be honest, an elitism on council.
Councillor Mundell?
All right, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay. My comments around this proposed adjustment is, I guess I probably could see reducing it to some effect and maintaining sort of a range or a cap on it, and maybe not increasing it for this year. But I don't agree with moving it from one place to another. If it was a reduction, I would be in support, but because it's just moving from one place to another, I just don't really see, again, the point of that. So I'm all for trimming and trying to cut where we can for sure, and happy to consider reducing attendances to conferences on my behalf if that makes a difference. I find them helpful, but also not necessarily to a point where I'd have to attend every single year. And I do think that all of us need to be maybe mindful of that and maybe considering whether we need to be there every single year at every conference. So that's, I think we can be a little bit considerate as we consider those signing up for those. So and I have in the past 4 years as well. I've attended some, but definitely not all, because I'm aware of the expense that it is to the taxpayer. So again, I could support it if we were moving in a direction of reduction overall, but I just can't support it if we're just moving money around and it's not saving the taxpayer anything by doing it. So my comments.
Okay, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, I'll amend the 10,000 figure to 15,000.
Is there a seconder to amend to 15? Second by Councillor Jones, and then for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, no, it's in no way any attempt to limit people. Anyone can go. It's just facing reality. I haven't gone the past 2 years to help pay for my Ottawa trip, which was great, the FCM there. But anyone that wants to go is welcome to go. That's not my idea. It's just the reality. It appears there's just 2 people going. So I thought, and I'm not just moving the money around, we're increasing the amount going to infrastructure. So that by putting it into the one-time reserve, less of the reserve money will be needed for that. Therefore, there'll be more funding available for the other reserve funds like the transportation one. So it's a worthy thing instead of it just having a sitting there not being used, it's being put into infrastructure. So that's the idea, and I didn't realize that, I assume FCM is in Edmonton. I didn't realize anyone was going to that. So whatever is needed for those that want to go, that level can be met easily. You know, if you're using all 25,000, that's fine, but my thought was, since we're not, I'm just looking at ways to help fund infrastructure is what I'm trying to do. So that's it. If 15,000 is not enough for all those planning on going, please speak up, and we can increase it or leave it as it is, but that's all I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Yes, I think it's clear that this isn't preventing anybody from going or in any way suggesting elitism. If the amount of money that we have actually budgeted isn't enough, then one of the reasons for the remainder going into one-time projects reserves is for it to easily be available, so that there isn't a problem if we aren't within the amount of money that this motion is asking for. So that's one thing. The other is, I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of the climate that we are in these days. There's very little in the way of grants. The province is hugely in debt. One of the reasons for going to these conferences was to try to get our hands on more grant funding. And as Mayor Swain has said many times, it probably just isn't there. So to spend a lot of money going to a conference with the idea that we're going to be getting a solid figure through a grant to help out our community may not even be true anymore. Certainly, it's not the same as it was in the old days. If we're going there to acquire knowledge, there's other ways to do that, even attending some of the seminars that are valuable remotely. But it is also the case that there's a lot of money that goes into these conferences, which for me is nothing that I want to be spending our community's money on. And there's a lot of extra activities that fall into the, have a good time eating or playing category. And for me, I just don't need that. That's my personal opinion. But whoever it does want to go, certainly this motion doesn't stop that from happening at all. I agree with Councillor Savage. It seems to be two people mainly that want to go, and this in no way prevents them from doing so. Any councillor who would like to go to a conference is very welcome to. It's just wrong to think that this motion is changing that climate, shall we say, that we have traditionally had.
Councillor Lerner.
Yes, thank you. I will be opposing the amendment, and I'll be opposing the motion for anything that reduces this budget for a number of reasons. The first is that we are going into an election year, and the beginning of the election year, we have a training program. So council may recall that immediately after the election, we were sent for training along with other elected officials at LGMA. We were also sent for training with our lawyers. So that all comes out of this budget. So are we supposed to be telling the incoming council that they don't receive training? I don't understand how we can reduce this budget in an election year. It's unfair to the incoming council for us to hamstring them in this way. Second, we just heard from the mover and the seconder that it would not prevent anyone from going to the convention with expenses paid. So then it really is just moving money from one place to another. It's taking money out of this budget to be spent on conventions and putting it into the one-time project reserves to be spent on conventions. It's not fair, in my opinion, to cause this confusion for council members or for the public. In my opinion, if council members don't want to spend the money going to one of these, then don't go, don't receive the training. But to basically say that it's going to hamstring the next council in their training, and it's going to hamstring the current council in being able to attend or not, in which case it I don't understand the purpose of the motion. And I do have to admit, I take umbrage to the idea that there's some sort of entertainment or meal extravaganza. I can tell you that, and I'm going into the policy right now, when I attend these conferences, I purposely only attend the items that are included in the registration, and I make it very clear that to staff when they register that I don't want the banquets or anything like that, because I don't want to charge the taxpayers for that. And I will note that our purchasing policy gives a specific dollar amount maximum for a meal. I think for something like dinner, it's $30 or something like that, which hasn't changed in a very long time. And you cannot get any more money than that. It doesn't matter if you eat the most expensive dinner in the world, you get $30. So the idea that somehow there's some sort of highfalutin thing on this, it's just insulting. So I will be voting against the amendment, and I will be voting against the motion. And I really think this is proving my point, that this sort of thing just causes division and bad feelings between council members who vie for the opportunity to go to training. And I think we're setting the next council up for very poor time and very much a lack of success if we're cutting our training budget and our meeting with lawyers and things like that.
Okay, I'll just briefly speak. You know, like I said earlier, on my first time around on this, you know, it's trying to promote a culture where if individual members of council want to attend, they can, and there's nothing that's going to impede that. And I can't even remember how we got to the budget we had set anyways. I don't know if it just kind of naturally got there or what, but again, council last term didn't seem to have an issue of it, and the beginning of this term didn't seem to have an issue with it, and so forth. In terms of the takeaways from these conferences, it varies from year to year, conference to conference. I know one year it was integral to getting the water grant. Another year or another conference, one of the big takeaways was getting information about getting an infrared drone for the fire department, which has become, I think it's a fairly valuable tool for the fire department, especially in the summer months, and making sure our town doesn't burn down because of homeless camps. There's lots of takeaways from these conferences, and the fact that we're even debating this right now is troubling unto itself, and I just don't think we need to be messing with it. If council wants to, you know, say, hey, maybe we should take a look at this, then I think where the amendment needs to be is, because we are doing a 5-year financial plan, is do something for 2027. But I think to do something now, we're in the moment. We're already halfway through March, and we're making this kind of change, and just shuffling money. It just doesn't make sense. And honestly, I don't know if sticking the money in the one-time council projects reserve is where the money should go if we're going to take money out of this. And if it's about, it should be either reducing taxation or moving it to another reserve or line item where, you know, it can help more. Anyways, I'll leave it there. I won't be supporting the motion as amended. Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. Just make one brief point that the line right above there is the one that looks after training for new council. That's $1,500, so it's a separate item, Councillor Lerner, that one. At any rate, could I request we call the question, please?
I have Councillor Jones, and then go ahead, Councillor Jones. Well, the question's been called, so I'm getting a huff from Councillor Savage, so I will call the question on whether or not we're going to call the question. So we're just voting right now to see if we're going to call the question. Okay, all those in favor of calling the question right now? And those opposed, noting Mayor Swain's opposed, Councillor Lerner's opposed, Councillor Mandel's opposed. The motion to call the question fails. Go ahead, Councillor Jones, you were the next speaker, and then I have Councillor Lerner, I believe.
Yes, just to make sure there isn't a misunderstanding about what I was saying. I was not suggesting that, as Councillor Lerner seemed to interpret it. What I'm saying is that there is a cost to going to the conferences. Not all that cost goes, the expense of a conference goes to seminars and, time with lawyers and those things. A good bit of that expense does go to rentals of facilities and to the food, which is provided, and the other amenities that are provided. So that comment I made about inefficiencies had nothing to do with the behavior of council or any counselors, so please don't interpret it that way. It has to do simply with the system of conferences and the budgeting and the expense of them. That's all. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Councillor Lerner and then Councillor Mundell.
Just to be clear, my understanding, and I'll ask through to staff, is that the council training of $1,500 is to cover the initial training in council chambers and stuff like that, but that if a new council wants to go to LGMA, which we did at the beginning of this term, that comes out of conferences. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So again, we're reducing training at LGMA for the new council.
Councillor Mundell. And you're muted.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
yeah, sorry.
It's like trying to figure out which button to push on which device. Sorry. Yeah, again, I go back to, I appreciate Councillor Savage's efforts on the reduction, of that line item again to 15,000. If we want to go that route, I think that is a discussion we can and definitely maybe should have. But I just don't see the point of moving money from one place to the other. I can totally support in the future taking a look at our system and taking a look at the plan, and maybe we pick numbers out of a hat to see who's going to go each year and make it a little bit more fair and equitable that way. I do agree that there are reasonable expenses that come with attending these conferences. One of them, we stayed at the Empress Hotel in Victoria, and the flights that come along with that, or with it going to ones out of province, they're significant costs. And I have heard at conferences of people from other communities saying that they could only send one person based on their municipal standards and their programs, or in some cases none of them could go because that conference costed too much. So there are definitely other municipalities also showing some restraint around conference attendance and the expenses that incur as a result. So again, I would be in support of us having probably a conversation about that. Maybe as others have mentioned, not this late in the game because of other folks have already booked their flights and whatnot for future conferences. But I do think this is definitely something worth looking at a little more closely and coming up maybe with a strategy and a plan, again, to make it fair and equitable so that all members of council who are interested could attend, but maybe not everybody has the same ability to all attend every conference every year. So willing to definitely look at that restraint for sure. So I'm not going to be supporting this as amended because, again, I don't agree with the moving of the money.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment, which is go to 15,000. So all those in favor and opposed, knowing Mayor Swain's opposed, Councillor Lerner, Councillor Mundell. Are you in favor or opposed, Councillor Jones, of the amendment?
In favor.
Okay, so the amendment fails. Now back to the main motion. Anything further? Okay, we'll move to call in question then. All those in favor and opposed, knowing Mayor Swain's opposed, Councillor Lerner's opposed, Councillor Mundell's opposed, and then Councillor Jones in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Okay, so the main motion fails. All right, so moving on, Councillor Savage, you have another motion.
Okay, so on page 17, that's the page over, that the 2026-2030 financial plan be amended in line item 01510-243, recruiting, by reducing 20,000 to 0 and placing the savings into the council one-time projects reserve. And that's the second line down from the top, recruiting.
Okay, do we have a seconder to this item? Okay, okay, go ahead, Counselor Jones, she's seconding, so Counselor Savage, to you.
Thank you. So, yeah, with this one, again, I'm trying to do the same thing. And the idea of putting it under one-time projects is that it can be pulled back out if needed. But in the meantime, it clears room for what funds are available to go into other infrastructure reserves. Because the less you have to put into one-time projects, the more there is for other infrastructure reserves. And with this, it's something I don't foresee any recruiting expense needs for the rest of this year. And if any come up, my preference is it comes to council so that we have a say at that time as to if the position is needed, if perhaps another position is needed, and so on. Otherwise, there may be no need for it to come to council, and also it gives us a chance to give input. If someone in a certain position is being hired, we might say, well, is it possible to find someone that's really high on environmental issues and Lantzville's environment? So that's the reason for it. It's, again, I'm looking at ways to allow more funds to go into infrastructure reserves. Thank you.
Counselor Jones is the seconder.
Yes, just in the interest of time, I don't want to repeat what another councillor has already said. So Councillor Savage has made the points that I would also make. So let's leave it at that.
I think Director Wells, I think, yeah, you're going to speak to it.
If I may, Your Worship, I know that we are going to need some money for recruitment costs for the year. I think it's unrealistic to think that there will be zero. So the only effect I can see of this is that we're going to have to go back to the one-time reserve and take money out. Also, just as a reminder for council that recruitment is an HR function that is delegated to the CAO, and so we do need resources in order to facilitate that as well. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Lerner.
Yes, I have a few questions. One is, so first of all, I'm looking at our 2023 actual was just shy of 25,000. Our 2024 actual was just shy of 32,000. And our 2025 actual was 30.5. So we've been trending for the last 3 years between 25 and 32,000. And staff have already reduced this to 20, which is a 33% cut or 34% cut in recruiting costs. I think that's a very reasonable that they've already cut it by 34%. But through your worship to staff, I understand exempt staff, there's some leeway in recruitment, but when it comes to QP positions, are we legally required to fill them when they become vacant?
No, we're not.
QP
So
positions?
we can choose not to fill a vacant position.
A
So-
QP position? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if it's vacant,
Right.
then we can decide, are we going to fill it or not? If it's occupied, the only way you could remove it would be to lay the person off.
Sure. No, sorry. I'm just trying to understand the recruitment piece, because what I'm trying to understand is maybe I'm totally wrong. My understanding was that exempt staff, we don't have to fill the position, but QP, unless we can show the work isn't being performed, we have to fill it. But maybe I'm totally wrong on that.
That is a mistaken understanding,
Okay.
Councillor Lerner. So
Okay.
anytime, it's always at our discretion what positions we have, whether they're in the bargaining unit or exempt.
Okay, great. So that's good to know. So that's good to know. But then my second question is, if we do fulfill a position, QP or otherwise, and we post we don't use a recruitment agency or anything, but we just post on Civic Info or anything like that. Is there a cost associated with that?
Yes, that's several $100s per ad, and it's depending where you advertise. So sometimes we have challenges. We have to advertise more than once for the same position. We're going through that with the foreman position right now in Public Works. So it can add up quite a bit, even just for small ads.
I see. So every time we post a position without a recruitment agency, just an ad, it is several $100s.
At least.
At least, okay. I'm torn on this one because I really like the idea of reducing costs, but I don't think zero is realistic, and we've already gone a 34% cut, so I'm not sure I can support cutting it more than 34%.
Okay, additional speakers on this item? You know, for myself, I understand, you know, what Councilor Savage is trying to do. However, it's, as has been pointed out by Councilor Lerner, it's already been reduced. We have been using, you know, using this budget line item over the last number of years, so it does make sense to completely take it down to zero. And you know, there's also reasons provided to why you know we'd want to have staff come to us, which I don't necessarily agree with. You know, we delegate the authority to our CAO to run the municipality, and that includes the hiring and recruitment or overseeing it and so forth. It's not the job of council to oversee the recruitment. That's our CAO's job. So, you know, so there's a few reasons that are being provided through this debate that, you know, that lead me not to support the motion on the floor. So I'll leave my remarks there. Is there anything further from council before I call the question? Councillor Jones?
Yes, respectfully, Mayor Swain, I'm not sure that you hit the nail on the head there, but I'll weigh in on that with my 2 bits. This isn't so much about who is recruited as what the some details of the job description might be per our strategic priorities. So, for example, if we're in a situation where there will be a new hire, but we are lacking the expertise in a certain area, this coming to council is an opportunity to have that discussion and influence over the education and expertise of the person being hired. That can be very important, especially as the needs of the community, you know, may change relative to the expertise that we have available. So I think it keeps a better connection between the direction of council and the operations of staff. We need the communication lines to be very open, and in order to, you know, give the best direction and to get the best operation from it. So I think it would actually be an asset to this part of the motion.
Yeah, through the staff, does staff wish to comment on that? Because just reading the room, it doesn't seem to be the case. You know, when we delegate authority, how's that interpreted? I think in terms of informing the debate, that would be most welcome.
Your worship, through to council. So as council is aware, the CAO is your employee. So the CAO under the delegated authority is responsible for all matters related to the administration of human resources. That's not to say that it can't be discussed with council, for sure, but the delegated authority is there for a reason, and it's to enable operations to do its thing without having to continuously involve council, because it just slows everything down and it doesn't add benefit to the overall processes that we need to use.
Okay, Councillor Mandel?
Yeah, from my perspective, again, if we were looking at maybe a reduction, I think I could, again, get on board with that. But again, just moving from one place to another, I'm not thrilled about that. I do think that I don't necessarily want to be asked every time a posting needs to go on Civic Info. I think that is kind of arduous and getting a little bit too deep into operational work. So again, if we really want to look at seeing if we can sharpen our pencils here and trim things up a bit, fine. But if we're just moving from one place to another, I can't really support that. I could consider supporting a reduction, but not zero. I think zero, again, I don't want every single recruitment step that have to come to us for funding. I think that's a bit much. So I again, if the mover would be considering maybe a reduction or a change to the language around the total amount, but taking it down to zero doesn't seem realistic.
Director Spola?
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that I would like to mention too, in a different vein, is under PSAB, we are judged by performance measures, how we perform against our budget. And I'm questioned directly by the auditors. I've been answering those questions this week on are there any significant differences between actuals and budget to reduce a code that we use consistently down to zero. I would have to answer this one, that I would have to point that out to the auditors, and PSAB requires that you compare your performance measures against original budgets. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lerner, and then I'm going to call the question.
Yeah, I appreciate the intention behind this of trying to rein in spending. I do note again, there's been a 34% reduction on the line item. One of the things that we've authorized as part of our sewer rates and water rates is the hiring of a technician maintenance 2. That alone will have to be posted at least once. And so I don't think $0 is realistic. I also don't think every time a posting on Civic Info related to the union should have to come to council, because the union rates are set in the collective agreement and the union job descriptions are set in the collective agreement. So what exactly, I don't fully understand why we would want that to come to council every time. If the goal is to have job descriptions for exempt employees come to council before hiring, then I think the solution is to make that a policy. We have all those policies, including our delegated authority policy. We could make that a policy. I'm not sure if I agree with it, but we could debate that and make it a policy. But to take a line item and make it 0 or even 10,000, like, I just don't see the point. I'm not sure I understand this one.
All right, I'm going to move to calling a question. All those in favor and opposed, Mayor Swain's opposed, Councillor Lerner and Councillor Mandel are opposed. It fails. Are there any other members of council wishing to make motions? Just trying to spread it around, Councillor Savage. Go ahead, Councillor Lerner, if you wish.
Thank you. I'll try and make this really quick. This is regarding the Lantzville Legion, and it was printed by staff. Should I read the whereas clause or just the motion?
Just the motion.
Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Therefore be it resolved that the remaining amount of Lantzville Legion's 257 Remembrance Day request be funded in the 2026 fiscal year from the one-time projects fund reserve, and further that funding of $2,500 per year for this event be placed into the 2026 to 2030 financial plan for the 2027 through 2030 fiscal years as a new line item separate from grants and aid.
I'll second that. And then for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Yeah, basically, every year we get a request for Remembrance Day support. I think it's totally worthwhile, and the Legion does a huge number of events for the community, not just Remembrance Day, but Canada Day and all these other events that they receive no funding for. So I totally get the why they come to us for funding. A lot of other communities fund it in full, and they only ask for part of the funding. But right now, they have to apply through grants and aid. We only have $2,500 a year in grants and aid. So we cannot fully fund, if we fully fund their $2,500 request, it's not fair to the other charities because there's no money left over for the other charities. And if we don't fully fund their request, then they're sort of subsidizing a Remembrance Day ceremony that's really for the whole community, and a lot of other municipalities fully fund it. So basically what this does is it creates no new taxation for 2026. It's $2,500 from the one-time project reserve, which we have lots of money left over. Less than 2,500 because we refunded like something like 865. So it's just 2,500 minus 865 out of the one-time project. And then for it provides them with the stability of knowing that 2027 through 2030, it'll be funded as a separate line item. And then the other thing is that that'll leave our full 2,500s in grants and aid to go to other charities, which is really what the purpose of that is for, is that you're not getting the same applicant every year. Because otherwise we have no money to give to anyone else. So I hope it makes sense what I just said, but that's the purpose behind it.
Okay, for myself as a seconder, I appreciate Councillor Lerner bringing this forward. I think it was last meeting we had, this came up, and you know, when we're allocating the funds for the grant and aid program, and nonetheless, you know, I see this as just an ongoing community event, and so I spoke to it last time, and it's right up there. Well, it's obviously more important than Minetown Day, but it's you know, this along the same lines of that. It's a community event, and we don't spend a lot of money on community events as in our municipality, and this is one that's definitely worthy of that. And it, you know, it's about bringing people together. The Legion consistently does an outstanding job and doing that, and continually growing and improving the event every single year they do it. So you know, this is at a minimum, you know, this is great that we can do this for them. So I'm hoping they'll get support through the rest of council. Okay, hearing nothing, I will move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, that is carried unanimously. Okay, and any other members of council before I go back to Councillor Savage? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones. Yep.
Thank you. May I read the motion, please? It's budget related. It was on the last agenda, but we didn't get to it. But as it pertains to the budget, I'd like to reintroduce it. So may I read the motion?
I have no idea what the motion is, but yeah, go ahead and read it.
Then I'll read it so everybody knows. Thank you. That council directs staff to prepare an offer for the owner of 8293 Island Highway for the purchase of a hiking trail 3 meters in width along the east
Councillor
property boundary.
Jones, I'm just going to stop you there. It is a point of order. That's an in-camera item. It's land acquisition.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you very much, Mayor Swain. CO Lasher.
Just so you know, we did not know this motion was coming, so our Director of Planning is not present this evening, so it would be very difficult to discuss this in camera without the Director of Planning.
Yeah, but we can always, you know, add it to our in-camera agenda as long as we're closing the meeting pursuant to the right section of Section 90, and then, yeah, time permitting. Okay. All right. Any other items? And go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Thank you. So the next one, just two more, that the 2026 to 2030 financial plan be amended in line item 01510-592. This is page 17. Legal, by reducing 86,500 to 70,000, and placing the savings into the council one-time projects reserve.
Oh, there it is.
And that's about 8 lines down from the top.
Sorry, what was the reduction?
86,000 down to 70,000.
Okay, is there a seconder to this? Okay, second by Counselor Lerner, and then for discussion, go ahead, Counselor Savage.
Yeah, this came up a few years ago, and if you take note in the SOFA reports going way back, there was a few items that had enormous increases a few years ago, and one of those was legal. So we decided 2 or 3 budgets ago to reduce it. It was up to about 115,000. It was getting so out of hand. So we reduced it down to 70 or 75, I forget which, I think it was 70, and it worked out just fine. It was, staff did a great job of keeping it under 70, and it's been that way, I think, the past year or two. So it's, you become what you target, and I'd like to see staying under that 70. There's no reason why not to, especially in an election year. Not as much happens in the fall after the summer break. Not that much happens on council in terms, especially for legal things and so on. So we can easily do it under 70. And once again, the idea of having it in the one-time projects is to free up other infrastructure money to go into infrastructure reserves. And if it's ever needed, it's sitting right there. If we ever find out that we do need a little extra legal money, it's right there. But it allows us to set that target and meet that target of 70. If we did it before, we can easily do it again. And this is resident money, and I'd like to see it only where it's necessary to get legal advice. And when we do, to get just short recommendations. We don't need pages and pages of case law and so on. So that's the key to me. So I think this is a good thing to do. We've done it in the past. It worked out great. So let's do it again. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go to CO Lasher and then to you, Counselor Lerner, as a seconder.
So legal is very project driven. On certain projects, you need to get legal advice. We are really heavy project driven this year. We're going to need legal advice, which we are currently getting based on other projects we're in the middle of, obviously. And I can tell you that this year is not the year to cut the legal budget based on the projects we've carried over from 2025 and all the projects we're doing this year. Protecting the municipality is super important so you don't end up paying down the road for an oversight.
Okay, Counselor Lerner.
So I just want to make sure I understand the motion. It's because I'm torn on this. It's 86,500 is what's currently in the revised budget. And the motion, if I understand correctly, is to reduce it to 70. I'm looking here at the 2025 budget was 75,000. And then we had projected in our 5-year financial plan that 2026 would be 76,500. So essentially, we're budgeting 10,000 more. If this motion does not pass, we would be budgeting 10,000 more than what was originally in our 5-year financial plan. So if the mover were to entertain, or the council were to entertain going from 86,500 to 76,500, which is what was originally budgeted in the 5-year financial plan, I think I could support that. But to go to 70 is to go below not only what was budgeted in 2026, but also what was budgeted in 2025. So I would entertain, again, going a reduction of 10,000 and putting it in the one-time project reserve that we could take from if we need it. But I have difficulty going all the way to 70. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Okay, additional speakers on this? Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Savage, and then myself.
Yes, I'll make an amendment and to amend 70,000 to 76,500.
Seconded by Counselor Lerner. And then further discussion, Counselor Savage on the amendment and Counselor Lerner on the amendment. Okay, through the rest of the council on the amendment. Okay, I will call the question on amendment. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Back to the main motion as amended. Additional speakers. Go ahead, Counselor Lerner.
Yes, I do take the CAO's point strongly. We have a lot of projects this year, and I'll note that our actual budget year-to-date is 66,627, but of course, there could still be outstanding invoices. And I note that our budget this year was 75,000, and in our 5-year financial plan was 76,500. So I'm fine to keep it at the estimated 76,500, but I can't go any lower than that. And then I would hope that if anything were needed, we would draw from the one-time project reserve.
So just as a point of clarification through the staff and maybe, Director Spola can speak to it, just so I'm clear, the additional 10,000 is based on what staff is anticipating in terms of making sure we're covered for our legal costs?
Thank you, Your Worship. We were basing it on requests that we'd received to council to date. To date, we've spent just over 17,000, and it's March still. And just a quick update, I checked the number for 2025, and we stand at $91,297 is the updated number for the invoices that came in for the month of December, and I think a portion of November.
Sorry, that was 91,000 for 2025?
Yes, $91,297.
Okay, so that kind of changes things then. So we're back to the main motion as amended, which is taking us to 76. Yeah, I can't, having some now new information and, and also where we're at with our year to date, I think we're going to be underfunded at 76.5 and obviously we're in an open meeting and I think council knows, what is in camera and without talking about it and if council would rather, if it gives more comfort to council just to move this particular item for an in-camera discussion, we can do that as well. And then do a whatever Horizon report and amend the financial plan after the fact. But I think keeping it at the 86.5 is definitely indicated just based on what I'm hearing now. So I'll leave it there. I won't be supporting the motion to reduce it to 76.5. Councillor Savage, I believe you wanted to speak next. No?
No, I just hope we can call the question. We have a lot to do
Yeah,
tonight.
we
Thank
sure
you.
do, yeah, okay. All right, I'm gonna move then to calling the question then. All those in favor and opposed, noting Mayor Swain's opposed, it carries. Okay, floor is yours, Councillor
Yeah,
Savage.
thank you. This is the fourth and last, please, for the open meeting, and it's on page 20. And that the 2026 to 2030 financial plan be amended in line item 0155526, ditching brush cutting by reducing 34,680 to 1,000 and using the savings to purchase equipment so this can be done in-house.
Okay, so is there, I was gonna, do we have a seconder first? Second by Councillor Jones, and then I guess Director Sapola, you can probably speak to the reserve it would be going to. I guess it's equipment or something, but I'll let you answer that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand the purpose, but respectfully, we likely don't have internal resources for this because of the way that the equipment that we currently have would operate. The 35,000 would not be able to purchase the equipment that would be needed to do this operation effectively and efficiently. The brush cutter that we do have works on a forward motion on the backhoe, because I've asked this question, why can't we do this internally? And it works in a forward motion. And the way the brush cutting is done, you'd have to have an articulating arm that came down, and the backhoe that we have would not be able to drive that. We'd have to buy a tractor as well that would be able to do that. The cost is quite substantial. I did look at this during the budget season just to see if there was any possibility of finding the equipment. I was made aware that there is a possibility that we could find used equipment, but that may slow down the process by quite a bit. And we would have to find it and put it in the budget for that. We'd have to present a budget for that item.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, yeah, I was going to refer this to staff and then get it back for, a recommendation. I just thought the only reason I did the motion was to start the process. So eventually, because we did hire an extra public works worker with the idea they'd be doing 80% machine work. And I still want to get to that point of getting a lot of things done with the machine. So by referring this back to staff, they may recommend, well, how about we do this in the 2027 budget? We can look into getting the right equipment, just a rough idea of how much that equipment would cost and so on. It's just I'd rather see this expense every year. It really adds up, and it used to be more than this. I'd rather see this expense going towards the capital cost of equipment, and then eventually we're really saving every year by having the right equipment, just doing it ourselves and doing it as needed and so on, without farming it out. So I move to refer this motion to staff and then getting back eventually a recommendation. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Lerner, and then discussion on the referral. Anything further, Councillor Savage? Councillor Lerner, and then through the rest of the council. All right, not hearing anything, I will call the question. All those in favor and opposed? Noting Mayor Swain's opposed, carries. All right, where are we at? Anything further, Councillor Savage, on?
No, that's it. I'll be happy to pass second reading, and again, great job by staff. Thank you.
All right. Any further motions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Not a motion, but just a question, if I may.
Yes, yeah.
So through your worship to staff, if I understood the financial plan process in the presentation correctly, the request is to pass second reading tonight, and then the follow-up motion is to go to public input. It would then come back April 15th for us to make any further amendments based on public input, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, unless there's anything further, we can call question on, sorry, did we, yeah, we did move in second reading, so it's just, now it's just as amended many times. Anything further before I call the question on the second reading as amended? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll call the question. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously, and that takes us on to the next one, that District of Lantzville 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 429/2026 be advertised for public input until April 10th, 2026. Second by Councillor Savage. Any discussion on this? Okay, hearing nothing, I will move to call in the question. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. That takes us on to item 8A. This one's kind of redundant in a way now. We've already got second reading passed. I was going to withdraw the motion anyways, simply because the thing I wanted noted on in the financial plan is the potential community amenity contribution through development, which is my understanding is not happening, so that the property owner for actually I don't have it in front of me here, but Yes, there you go, 22, or 7261 Lantzville Road is no longer pursuing the application. I think that's accurate through the staff. Is that, I did send an email through today. I don't believe it was answered, but I believe that's accurate. They have withdrawn. So with that goes the potential of the funding source of through development and the community amenity contribution of $180,000. So I'll leave it there. Moving on in our agenda, so we're under 9. Actually, we don't need that. We've got no new business. Any late items to introduce?
Your worship, I just wanted to
yep.
ask, there was one item I wanted to review with council further to the business license appeal. It's just a short piece of feedback that I wanted to offer
Okay.
before we finish the open, if I may.
So under new business then, or whatever? Yeah, I guess.
Sure, yes,
Sure.
please, wherever it fits.
Under
That's
10,
fine.
new business.
Thank you. The reason I wanted to bring this back up with council, so you'll recall that at the last meeting, there was a business license appeal presented, and that appeal was granted by council. And there was a few things in follow-up that, in retrospect, I wish I had said them during the meeting in the absence of the CAO. So having some further reflection on it. I don't know if council saw this, but in the video at the end of the meeting, Mr. Tedescini, the operator, was seen turning around, pointing at Director Robinson and calling him an asshole before he left the meeting. And I received some comments via email from the public regarding that behavior, and nobody noticed it, so it never got addressed. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring this back up is to just reinforce with the public that our staff will not be tolerating any such abuse from the public, and any of that behavior in our council chambers in future will be strongly reprimanded for sure, because staff are not here to take that kind of abuse from the public. And when you look at the video, you will understand what I'm saying. It's very evident in the video. So there was that piece of it that I really wanted to reinforce while we're in the public. And I think it's really important to protect our staff from that as well, because it's hard enough to do what we do, and we don't have to be tolerating that, and neither does council. So I just wanted to make those points. The other piece I wanted to go over with council is that I felt that Director Robinson was highly criticized for his actions on this file, and I didn't think it was fair to him. He applied the bylaws that have been put in place by council, and he is not authorized to do anything other than that. So by doing what he did, he was trying to uphold the decisions of this council, and I thought he was really harshly criticized for that at the last meeting in my perspective. And I did want to make council aware of that. I know council may not have anticipated the result of the bylaws that are in place, and I completely understand that. Things come up that you didn't think would happen. That is well understood, and council is always within its rights to replace our recommendation with its own decision. That is not a problem at all. It was just the flavor of it felt very hard on Director Robinson, and it did concern me. And like I said, he has to follow our bylaws, and so do I. We didn't have any other option but to recommend what we had recommended. And finally, there were a lot of comments about the spot checking of this license and the fact that it was not complaint driven. And I want to just make sure council is aware that spot checking for bylaw compliance for business licenses is a legitimate use of our authority. It is not in any way singling out residents, and it is not an inconsistent application of the bylaw. In our view, the spot checking keeps everyone on notice who has a business license bylaw that at any point we can ask to come in and review your business license and make sure that you meet the requirements. And I think if everyone is aware that that could happen at any time, it facilitates the public actually following the bylaw. There is absolutely no requirement for us to treat everyone the same way in that regard. So I also wanted to make sure that council is aware of that, because we don't have the resources to be doing that, and I don't want the public thinking that it's easier for them not to comply with the bylaw because of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Wells, for informing council of what transpired during the last meeting. And as mayor, I tried to do my very best to uphold, proper decorum and behavior in these council chambers, but I don't always see everything. And upon my review of the footage from the last meeting, it was very clear what had transpired, and it is not acceptable. So thank you for bringing it forward. I know it requires a lot of courage to speak and be open and direct with council and also to the community. So I thank you for that, and thank you for doing that also on behalf of staff. Okay, that moves us on into our meeting. So do we have anybody any notices of motions? I think I covered off late items, notices of motions. Public clarification, I don't believe we have anybody remotely registered this evening. No, we do not. And just making sure through the staff, what is the subsection for property acquisition? Just making sure I have that. Yeah.
Section B, security of the, or no.
Is it under D or?
We're just checking, your worship, just
Yeah,
give us 1
thank you.
second.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. It just take a second.
Just want to make sure.
It's E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest. So section E.
Okay, much appreciated. Okay, so I will make that recommendation, close the meeting, that the regular or the special meeting of council be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91A, E, D, E, and K of the community charter. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Lerner. I will move to call in the question unless there's any discussion. Okay, hearing and seeing nothing, I will call the question. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously. All right, so what is the time?